people. Welcome back. This is the week you missed special election episode. We had the election yesterday. Results are not fully in, but enough are in for us to get some conclusion. So let's get right into it. Todd, what do you got for us?
Well, it was the red wave that wasn't. I think is sort of the biggest takeaway from this. I think Republicans are obviously going to end up taking control of the House, but this whole idea that it was just going to be a fucking knockout for the Republicans completely fizzled. And I think that, there's going to be a lot of introspection on the Republican side of the aisle in terms of what went wrong. And I think it's frankly going to come down to they picked some crazy ass candidates largely based off of Trump pushing people.
Yeah.
And I think, the one
Which do you think were
thing.
some of the biggest surprises, or do any stick out for you?
I'm not saying surprises. What I'm saying, it's more along the lines of like, I mean, look, Doug Mastriano is a nut job. Like the
Yeah.
idea, like if in Pennsylvania, if the Republicans had run people that were halfway sane or normal, I think they very well could have had a chance. I mean, looking at how close the Dr. Oz Fetterman race, I think it's like 1.5% maybe. Like it's a very close race, and obviously, Dr. Oz is a New Jersey resident, technically carpetbagger, outsider, like non-politician, snake oil salesman, and he almost pulls it out. But you ended up with someone who literally had a stroke 5 months ago and has trouble talking, who pulled it off. I think the biggest thing that the Republicans, if they're able to do this correctly, I think the biggest thing they can take away is using this as an opportunity to really maybe kind of like formally break up with Trump and be like, hey, bro, all those wacky candidates that you put forward, turns out it didn't work so well, and turns out you're not like a political kingmaker that you thought you were.
Right.
And then now the other thing is that
You think that's
in
actually going to happen, or you think that's what would be smartest for them to do?
I think it will. I think, frankly, like my sort of view of the Republican Party and Trump is that there's a lot of people that basically have been being held hostage by him because he's got this like insane base that absolutely loves him, and he talks about like he's the only thing that can win for Republicans and all this. But I think a lot of people quietly are just like, you're an asshole and no one likes you, and like I don't want to vote for you again. Like I will vote for you if I have to, but like I don't want
Mm.
to. And so I think hopefully people will look at this and be like, well, look, he got involved, he threw his, he did a lot of promoting of candidates and this, that, and the other, and it didn't work out. And he doesn't understand the type of person that the American electorate is looking for, and he's not the person that we're looking for. I mean, frankly, look, if we get Joe Biden versus Donald Trump again in 2024, like I think there's a possibility Trump wins, but I think especially after tonight, and especially just everything that has happened with him, like I think Biden would just walk to victory again. And I think
Really?
that I mean, I look, he's just so hated and so toxic. I don't see how he could get any high level of numbers or any even remotely sort of swing state and win. I think the on the pro side of the ledger for the Republicans, though, I think that the fact that DeSantis just absolutely crushed his opponent, Charlie Crist, who's just a weird looking dude. Absolutely crushed him. Ended up Miami-Dade County went, I think, Republican for the first time in like 20 or 30 years, which is sort of crazy. And I really think that now is the time, and I think what you're going to see in the coming days, months, or weeks and months, as people are doing like a postmortem on this election, one of the things that's going to start coming out is I think you're going to see DeSantis start taking a much more prominent role. And I
Hmm.
think he's going to come out a lot more and talk about what he did and really start trying to promote himself. I think if Trump, I mean, I think it's inevitable that Trump is going to run for re-election, or at least
Should be
throw his
announced
hat in the ring.
within the week. I think they're going to announce it. Which there's rumors he was going to announce it yesterday or the day before. I feel like that would have
I
been
know
wild.
that would have been insane. If he had done that, it would have been like, well, you're just the biggest asshole on the face of the
Yeah.
planet. So I think yeah, I don't know. I think it was a crazy night. I think that
Do you think there's
abortion.
a couple questions? Do you think there's any um, errors? Do you think there's any cheating? Do you think the process is improved at all from the last 2 years? Or what do you think are still like some issues with that?
Look, I mean, obviously there's some errors. Obviously there's some cheating. It just look, we have too many people voting for there not to be.
Hmm.
It's just simple as that. It's a matter. It's like the law of large numbers. It's like
Right.
within a large enough sample, basically everything ever is going to happen. I always think about that. It's like there's probably some guy right now like dying by stepping on a rake somewhere in the world. Like like
Hmm.
wacky shit happens everywhere because there's like 7 billion of us. And so
Yeah.
the same thing's going to happen with elections. Of course there was cheating. Of course there was errors. My thought on it is that it's probably happening on both sides, and it probably basically cancels each other out. But I do think it is absurd. Like Brazil just had an election and they basically counted the entire country's worth of votes in like 12 hours, and we're done. And
Yeah.
you see this all the time. And like Florida has a very great vote counting system. And I think it really, if I remember correctly, basically after like the big, controversy around the Bush election and the hanging chads and all this, that like they did, because they were the spotlight and because it was such a shameful moment for the state of Florida back I guess in 2000, that they basically reformed the way they collect votes, count votes, all this, and like they report results super, super quick and efficiently. And I think the one thing I would like to see, like, look, every state can choose how they count ballots or tally things and all this, but I do think it would be really helpful if states standardized the way that they counted votes. And I feel like it should
Hmm.
be, and also standardized like the windows of time for early voting or mail-in voting. So like for instance, I think that like I was talking to my dad and brother last night, and I think that you frankly shouldn't be able to have like early voting or mail-in voting shouldn't be able to start until there's been at least a debate between the candidates. Like I don't
Yeah.
think like I for one think that I think that would have had a major impact in Pennsylvania. And I also like I don't necessarily like I like the idea of early voting and mail-in voting and making it easier for people to vote. But this idea that you let people vote like a month before the election day is wild. That
Yeah.
last month of any race is when all the shit comes out. It's when everything changes. So
And
like look, give it.
to me, that just proves that like there's a lot of people that aren't even listening to what candidates are saying. They don't even really seem to care about what is being said or proposed. Is they want just party lines. Because like if you're voting
Yeah.
a month early before the debate, you don't really even seem to care what happens. You just want to vote for blue or vote for red. And to me, that's like kind of an issue. I kind of wish they didn't even say who the Republican or the Democrat was on the ballot, so that you had to fucking figure it out or know, because a lot of people
Yeah.
probably don't even know the people that were on the Pennsylvania ballot. Besides Fetterman, Oz, Shapiro, Mastriano, I had no idea who they were. I wouldn't have known if they were green or libertarian or whatever, except it was
Yeah.
just under that column. There should be some like due diligence on the person to know who is who. Otherwise, you have people just voting on party lines or voting for what they heard, and I don't know, just seems like a little odd.
But like this fact, like I think the way Florida does it is they basically count like once they start releasing results, they take all of the early votes and they've already counted a lot of the mail-in votes and they report those first. And then they start adding on the in-person vote totals and also finishing up like mail-in votes and all that. But I think you've got some states where it's like they start counting the in-person votes first, and then the mail-in votes and early votes come second. And it's like, can we all agree that like, look, if they voted early, you can already be counting them. Like,
Right.
let's report like anything. If they voted before election day, count those first, get them reported, have those start off, and like just keep everything in the same order. Because the reason I say this is because it creates all these nut job conspiracy theories like, oh, the Republicans were winning for the first half of the night, and then it's like, yeah, and then they started counting the mail-in ballots, and
Right.
then the Republicans lose, and it's like all it does is like not having a clear and consistent way that everyone sort of does it just creates these opportunities for nut jobs to be like, oh, this was stolen stolen, or they dropped off a bag of ballots in the middle of the night. And like, it's just stupid. And it's like, it's something that I think would benefit the American democracy if at least all 50 states could get together and be like, this is the order in which we're going to count our votes, and this is the way we're going to do it. And we're all going to agree that we're going to do early and absentee first, and then in-person votes, or whatever. Just something that was a little more standardized. And I do think that, I think that just there needs to be some kind of reform around this, because look, the thing is, and we've seen this before, people in both parties question the integrity of elections. Like, everyone likes to think this is a Republican issue, but like, going back to 2000, I mean, people think Bush stole the election. People think Bush stole the election in 2004. I have no opinion, but it's this. We need to make efforts to make Americans in general more confident in the security of their elections and the integrity of elections, because it's a really bad thing if it turns out that you start having large percentages of the American population that think elections are illegitimate. Like, that's really, really bad. Like, that is a piece of, that is a match to the fire of potential like civil unrest and civil war and things like this. Like, if people can't trust their elections, I don't know, it's not a good thing.
I feel like that's one of the defining things of like a modern civilized country is like the elections. That's like when you hear about Afghanistan or Russia having their elections, and that they're all fake and fraud, like you're like, no, those countries aren't too great. But let's get into what I have. It's related, a little bit different, but I don't know. The whole election process is just bizarre to me. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in a lot of ways. I really don't. I hate to say this. I don't think everyone should be allowed to vote. I think everyone is valuable. I love everyone. I think everyone has the right to like a free life, but no, not everyone should vote. And I'll put myself in that boat also. There's some things I'm not qualified to vote on. I don't know why I have a right to vote. So why am I saying this, or how do I relate this to anything that happened? Here's something that was on the ballot yesterday in Philadelphia that I voted on. I want to know if you have any idea what this means or what you would have voted.
Yeah.
Should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to create the Department of Aviation to transfer certain functions related to the operations of city airports from other city agencies to the Department of Aviation?
I mean, look, man, I'm super pro Department of Aviation. If you're not, you're a Nazi. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what that really means. Like, who runs the airport now, and how would it be different if the Department of Aviation's created? Will that cost more money? Will it be less money? Will it be the same manager just in a different agency? Will they fire people? Will they have to hire new people? You have no idea. So I actually had to read into this. Like, I looked up online later.
What does it mean?
What it even meant. It basically is like, should there be an own agency? And so the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, that means the Philly Constitution. That's the first thing I had no idea. So that was important information. But basically it means the city runs these airports. Should they have their own agency that kind of runs them? Again, though, even after reading into it, what does that mean? Like, what would it mean if its own agency ran the airport? Like, I understand what that means, but I don't understand how that will be different. Will it cost us more money, less money, whatever? So that was one of the questions. Here's the other one. This one's probably more confusing. Ready? Shall the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, so that means the Philadelphia Constitution, because I didn't know what that meant before, be amended to provide for preference in civil service examinations for qualified graduates of career technical education programs in the school district of Philadelphia? Do you know what that means?
Sure.
I think it means that like government jobs should require you should be allowed to require the ACT as well as the SAT. I think something like that. I don't know, but how about this? Ask me what the question means before I go in. And if I don't know what it means, don't let me vote for it. Why am I voting for two things that I have no idea what they mean? Because also the way they word these things are to confuse people and make you think like what you're voting for is always a good thing. I remember last election, I believe it was something like, should we get $250,000 to like make parks or something? And it looked very advantageous, beneficial. Everyone's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But what you didn't know that wasn't even in the fine print, you had to like do research, was this $250,000 would be like siphoned from another program. It wouldn't just be like created. So it was actually probably not a beneficial thing. But no one knows that because no one's reading into it. So like, why do they have these things just thrown in that no one really is aware of, no one really understands, and no one really knows what they're actually voting for? So what do you did you see any of those in North Carolina? Do you remember them? Or
Yeah, we had some ballot questions, but ours were much more straightforward. It was basically like, do you want to take out a $250 million loan to like improve the schools or community colleges? Like ours, we didn't have anything that wacky.
yeah.
But so I guess here's my question. You know, Jeremy is Emperor of America. We're still going to be a democracy, but you get to determine who votes. How would you say who gets to vote? What's
Uh,
the age?
so
What are the criteria?
one thing I would do before you come, like as you come into the election office, and you'd have unlimited tries. Like I wouldn't say like once you lose you can't do it, but you need to tell me who's running, what they're running for, one policy by each of the people. Uh, Read this what I just wrote. The questions on the ballot shall the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, and tell me what it means. As long as you know who's running, what they stand for, and what the questions mean, you're good. I don't care if you're 12. I don't care if you're a felon. Those rules don't matter to me. Just understanding what you're voting for is what matters. Do you know what this is about? Because most people don't seem to know. They're just voting to vote.
Well, okay, so but it's serious question. So there's been this idea that we should extend the voting age to younger people. Do you think someone 16 years old should be able to vote?
Yeah, and I think someone 80 probably shouldn't be allowed to vote. Like, why is that guy voting for something that's not going to affect him much? That guy doesn't care about the Earth, global warming. He doesn't care about Social Security. It's going to run out for him. Like, that guy's at the end of his life. Someone who's 16 has 80 years ahead of their life. That person, like, has a lot riding on these elections. I think a 16-year-old probably should be allowed to vote, but also I think you should probably pass like maybe not an aptitude test, but if a 16-year-old wants to vote, they should put in a few hours to show that they want it. Like, hey, maybe if you're under 18, as long as you do 20 hours of community service, you can vote. That's fine. So, like, it just shows that people actually want it and that they actually are fighting for something instead of just voting to vote. So, like, if I'm cool with felons voting, if again, probably same rule as like a 16-year-old, if a felon does 20 hours of community service because they really want to vote and it means that much to them, let them vote then, because that person, like, to me, has shown that they want to improve, they want to do something good. I don't know, but like, what would the lowest age be? I probably would say the lowest age is just like whatever is able to understand, read something, understand what's going on, and make a decision by it. So if you're a 10-year-old, but you understand what Fetterman stands for, and you want Fetterman to win because you think abortion rights are so important, let the 10-year-old vote. I'm cool with it as long as they understand. That's it.
You're a nut job. If anything, I feel like the voting age should be like 25. Are you fucking kidding me? You want 12-year-olds voting?
Yeah, how
You
about
jack.
maybe 12-year-olds get a 2/5 vote? Like count them as something, but not as much. I don't know. It's something, but I don't know. The way
Oh
we
man.
another thing actually too, that just like kind of reminded me is like I hate the two-party system and I hate that there's only a couple people running. I like
Yeah.
France when there's like 10 people voting and you kind of give ranked choice. It's like, no, I want Fetterman number one, but I want Oz number three, and I want this guy number two. And it's like rank them because it's elections shouldn't be black and white, 1 and 0, yes and no. It's like there's a lot more
Yeah.
involved in that, and it'd be nice to have some more choices. But that'd
No,
be
and
probably pretty hard for a 12-year-old to decipher between 10 choices.
Yes. Well, and look, I do think I think if anything, if I could snap my finger, like I don't know if America would be better if we had like five major parties and we were somewhat close to like a parliamentary system or something like that. But like I really do think that the two-party system is like we sort of fucked ourselves. Like
Mhm.
this is dumb.
Yeah,
And I don't have you been following or have you Andrew Yang Gang,
of course.
math, all that stuff. He's pushing this forward party idea, which is I think in our lifetimes it is the probably the best effort that I've seen in terms of trying to create a viable third party or a third way. Look, I have a lot of libertarian leanings, but libertarians are fucking kooky and weird, and they're never going to be able to compete. I mean, shit. Did you know that during the Arizona Senate debate, there was a libertarian candidate who started talking about how age of consent laws should be looked at because that's like not. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
I'm
I
moving to
don't know if you're.
Arizona.
I was gonna say I don't know if you're excited or distressed. I can't tell. Like, Jeremy's
I don't
got some
have
middle
kids.
schoolers to talk to. But it's like, look, man, you guys are wacky. Like, it's I think that um I think it's gonna be I don't know. I think I'm gonna be interested to see what happens from this. I think that the biggest thing we can hope for is that this whole election cycle will destroy Trump's chances of being anyone within the Republican Party and hopefully really end his chances at any sort of shot in 2024. I think that hopefully Ron DeSantis just comes out and starts just curb stomping Trump in terms of being because like and well, it's funny because Trump tweeted yesterday, like the scumbag that he is. He's like, "Oh, Ron DeSantis." He's like, "I know more about him than anyone except maybe his wife." Like, I'm going to start letting people know things. It's like, all right, go ahead, you scumbag. Are you kidding me? You've cheated on like every single wife you've had. You paid to
Yeah,
bang a prostitute or a porn star while your wife was pregnant. Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
look, what's it going to be like? Ron DeSantis, like, died and ditched one time, or like, looked at a chick's ass while his wife was standing next to him. Like, come on. I just,
Ron DeSanctimonious.
Ron, no, that was the dumbest nickname ever. Like, I've listened to multiple podcasts and everyone's like, in terms of the Trump nicknames, like, that was his weakest one ever. Like I feel like he should have just gone like Ron to dickhead or something. Like he should have gone like really just like crass and ridiculous because Ron to sanctimonious just like it doesn't have this sticking power of like little Marco Rubio or low
Yeah,
energy Web.
no, not at all.
It just
Do
it's
you
or
think he even knows
slop.
what sanctimonious means? Because I didn't. Some big words.
I know you're more of a math guy, but come on, you must have cracked 600 in your verbal SATs, right? Like
No, I think I got a 590.
oh shit! All right, so you really do have that vocab issue.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I'm all
no,
numbers.
I do bet Trump was like, give me some words. One of the guys was like sanctimonious. He's like, that's not a word. And they're like, no, actually, it is a word. It means it means like full of oneself and like
Yeah.
acting like you're better than you are. And it's like, oh, that's him. That's him.
Yeah.
Sanctimonious. Yes.
Yeah.
but
Pretty
yeah, no,
awesome.
I think the odds of Trump fully, well, one, I definitely don't think he could spell it if he had to sit down and write it out.
Mm,
Like,
no, not at
yeah.
all.
So
But
what is what what? So here's something that's interesting with Pennsylvania, since it's where you live.
mm,
Um, what do you think? Do you think that John Fetterman's wife is going to be basically running the show behind the scenes? Because that has been the rumors that she's the one who's actually sort of running the show,
I
and
didn't
that
hear much about that, but it wouldn't surprise me. And or maybe not her, but his team. Like I don't think he's going to be doing too much for the next 2 years. I wouldn't even be surprised if he doesn't last the 2 years. To be honest, too, like wouldn't be surprised if the health issues get worse and he has to stop before it's up. I don't know. I just wouldn't be surprised at that. But you think the wife is running everything?
I don't know. I feel like it'll be. because like there were rumors that, and this will be interesting to see what pans out. I'm sure it's mainly like a conspiracy theory, but that John Fetterman, especially if the Democrat won, if Shapiro won the election in Pennsylvania, if senators resign, retire, die, whatever, while in office, the governor just gets to appoint a replacement. So the thoughts is that the plan was for Fetterman to win and then basically be like, I need to focus on my recovery, so I'm going to resign. And then Shapiro would appoint his wife or someone else into the role. So I don't think that's likely to happen because I don't think it will, but it will be interesting to watch to see if that happens.
I could definitely see that happening. I think there's definitely I didn't know that about Shapiro gets to a point. I don't know if it'd be the wife, but I definitely think that there's a good chance Fetterman doesn't last and someone else replaces him.
My God, if he has another stroke, like walking into the Senate, like on his first day of work, like with he's got an apple for the Senate Majority Leader to put on his desk, and then just like strokes out.
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully not. I feel bad.
Hopefully not. No,
yeah,
but and he's just such a goon. Like do you think he wears a hoodie on the Senate floor? Do you think he
I do.
He does?
I think he will. Yeah, I kind of do. He looks goofy in a suit. He looks a lot more normal in a.
Honestly, like I don't like the whole like I'm an everyman. I'm wearing a Carhartt hoodie. Like I think it's like a shtick, and I think it's stupid. But he looks ridiculous in it. Like I don't know, just because of how big he is. Like I don't know. Like, can someone who's 6'9" and weighs 300 pounds, like, is there a suit they look good in, or is it like they just look weird? Like,
yeah, probably not. We'll see though. It's we're definitely in interesting times. It's gonna be an exciting few weeks at least to see what comes from all of this. And now we're in election season for the president, which I don't know, next 2 years are going to be absolutely nuts. So we're here for it.
Well, look, as someone in Pennsylvania, and I know you probably don't like watch a ton of TV, but if you watch anything with TV commercials and probably your mail has been getting abused, I am just happy that I can go back to seeing like car commercials and things that aren't like Ted Budd wants to murder your mom. It's just
over and over and over again, like repeat commercial after repeat commercial after repeat commercial. It was insane. And the amount of text messages I got every day and then people calling, it was so annoying. So definitely grateful for that. But it's going to start up again in like 6 months, I bet, when election season starts coming back. So enjoy the time while we have it.
I was always I'm a big, I've always been into politics since and I grew up in Connecticut. And so like growing up in Connecticut, it's a blue state. Like there was never any national ads. And then I went to Penn State for college and we had the first election. I was like, holy shit. I was like, there's a lot of political ads here. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm living in a battleground state now. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then after like 2 years, I was like, this sucks. Because it's like everywhere you go, it's just, you're bombarded constantly and it never ends. And I'm so happy to be done with this. And I think it's gonna be wild. But look, I just got let's take a little detour here to something a little more like fun, but not necessarily lighthearted. I just saw a headline and I clicked through on it. So there has a guy who was involved in creating Oculus, created a version of a VR headset. You know an Oculus, right?
That kills you.
That kills you. That kills you.
Yeah.
Wild. Would you play that, man?
No, not a chance. Unless like that's the game that we're currently in. That's what some people think. But he said like you're not gonna be as motivated or in a game if you know that you have like another chance. So this is like the ultimate like real game effect. But it's like, dude, who wants to die if they lose? Like
I do think so, but for anyone listening, that basically this guy has built an Oculus headset that has 3 explosive charges around like the base of the skull that basically if you die in the game they blow up and it kills you. Now that's extreme obviously, but I mean you have a VR headset, right? Like you play.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So like I do think if there was an option where like you could have it so that if you died in the game it gave you like a 10,000 volt low amp shock that like hurt a lot, like it would make you play the game differently, right?
Definitely. Oh, definitely, it would for sure. But you don't want to die.
No,
'Cause then,
oh, absolutely no. But I
yeah,
do think it would be really interesting to see. I think if this technology shifts, like this idea of basically being like, hey, look, you can opt into this version, and everyone who plays this game, you have to have on the 10,000 volt shock thing, and it makes everyone take the game much more seriously.
yeah.
like, but I don't know, man. I think technology is wild. Results of last night's election were wild. I'm here for it. I think if anything, like I'm sort of happy about the results because I think if anything, it sends a message to the Republicans that like, hey, you guys got to get your shit together.
Mm.
Like, I mean, look, here's my question: what you follow politics a little bit. If what do you think like a Republican Party platform? What should be like the three things they focus on or like big things they talk about if they want to try to like attract people that aren't like diehard MAGA people? Like, what would you say, like in the ideals of sort of Republican? What do you think?
I mean, I think what their talking points are supposed to be of like less government, which means like less taxes, more like personal freedom. Um, yeah, and I guess more progressive policies for business, like things that promote business and capitalism. I don't know if that answered the question too specifically, but kind of what the Republicans are supposed to be. I guess what I wouldn't talk about, I wouldn't care that much about abortion. I wouldn't care that much about like trans or gay rights. I wouldn't care that much about drugs or yeah, drug war or anything like that. Like I feel like all of those talking points are just like not that big a deal. And for some reason we get stuck talking about all of those when there's bigger things. I'd probably talk about like our military and maybe like trying to bring our military back a little and make sure that we know what we're doing in foreign policy. I feel like that's something that kind of has been a little bit forgotten for the last few years. And it's like at a time when the international landscape is so volatile, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like our politicians are talking about that like at all, which is just interesting. What about
No,
you?
I think the Republicans they missed their chance, and I think it started around gay marriage. Like when the gay marriage debate was raging, I feel like the Republicans at a federal level should have been like, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pass a law that says the federal government does not care about gay marriage. It is for every state to decide, do your own thing. We will pass a law that says the federal government will not pass a law that says this is legal or illegal. Like we will endorse anything that a state does, and they could do it basically on the idea of small government, states' rights, local control. They could have done the same thing with pot. They could do the same thing with abortion. I think they really need to embrace this idea that I think and with the trans stuff too. I think they should say, like, I think if Republicans were smart, they would propose legislation that basically says the federal government is not allowed to make overarching national laws that impact, you know, anything related to trans stuff, anything related to marijuana or drug stuff, anything related to marriage or anything like this, and just like lead the charge that says, while we might disagree with these things, we understand that it's best decided at a state level. So we're going to pass laws that say the federal government will always stay out of these things. We will not intrude and
Mm,
and just try to lead on that and say, look, if you want to live in Alabama where abortion is illegal and your trans 14-year-old can't get hormones, move to Alabama, go live there. You want to live in Oregon and all this stuff is legal and it's all promoted and subsidized, go, great, live there.
right.
Like, but I think the culture war stuff is going to be very big. And I think that the Republicans would do best at a national level by embracing this thing of basically being like, look, it's not our job to make these decisions for you.
Hmm.
It's our job to talk about foreign policy, to talk about national tax policy. Like that is what we do at a national level. State
Right.
level, you guys figure out what you want to do with trans kids. You guys figure out what you want to do with abortion or drugs or whatever.
Right.
But I think that they just can't help themselves. They're idiots, and they're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna keep trying to be like, we want to try to impose our will across the entire country. Like that's never going to work. It's never going to be responded to positively, and it's not something that's going to have any effect. Like it's going to
Yeah.
be a useless effort.
But it's what
But I
people respond to, unfortunately, and that's why they keep doing it, is because people hear that and they get loud about it.
well, and the thing that's crazy, it's like I do think that the there's going to be a lot of celebrating on the side of Democrats today because they didn't get absolutely shellacked like everyone thought they would.
Hmm.
But I think it will be a miscalculation for Democrats to think this is like a ringing endorsement of what they're doing, and that like it was basically like the Republicans put forward a bunch of baddie people, and right now the abortion issue is up in the air, so that's going to so like I think both parties have a lot of soul searching to do in terms of understanding, but like, how do we actually appeal to people? Because, ideally, hopefully, if these parties continue to act the way they're acting, that people will start voting or not voting for, third party candidates or supporting something and being like, you guys both suck. Like,
Yep.
yeah, so this election is going to be dissected a lot because it completely went against what everyone was expecting. And so it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of days and weeks and months how this gets broken down. And then once Trump declares his candidacy, everything just gets taken up to level 11 again.
Yeah, we'll
I
definitely
can't
have an
find.
episode when that happens. I'm
Oh,
excited for it
oh,
and here for it. But think that is all for the week you missed. It was definitely a wild week. Well, it's still kind of all coming out, so we'll probably have more to talk about next week. Still about the election. Hopefully there's not anything like January 6th riot overturning whatever. 'Cause I wouldn't be surprised if that happens too. Pretty nuts. I think one of the most exciting is the Herschel Walker one is like 20,000 votes difference right now. So we'll see if anything comes out with that.
well, the Herschel Walker, that's probably going to go to a runoff, which will be interesting to
Super
see how that
interesting.
goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
That dude fucking got CTE and is just an idiot. And like I can't like if the Republicans put forward a halfway competent person there, they would have walked away with victory.
Yeah,
It's Brian Kemp just crushed Stacey Abrams, but he's just a nothing burger who's paid for like a baker's dozens of abortions. Like
yeah.
I just like there's no way.
Well,
Um,
yeah, pretty
yeah,
pathetic that one is so close, but that's where we are these days. That's what we've been asking for. So that is
yeah.
all. Love you,
Well,
everyone.
anyways,
See you next
peace.
week. Week we missed. Peace. All